So part 3, adding two different shaders to a single object. So for instance, you can add cement and brick to the same object by using two different shaders on that single object and then mixing those two different shaders with another node, a mix shader node. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to push Suzanne through the floor here. I'm sure she's fine, she'll survive. Let's double up this cube, and then I've got concrete on this cube already, and I want brick to be shining, or not shining, it's not the right word, protruding through the concrete, or otherwise maybe I have a brick base layer and the concrete protruding through that. But if I click on this, you'll see I've only got one shader here. Now let's go ahead and make another shader. So I'll use the cement shader over there, and then say for instance, just for the sake of the exercise, I don't have another shader here. I know we do, but so let's make our brick shader, and let's pull in one of our textures. And if I open this, it's already in the scene, so I don't have to go open here. I can just click on get from scene. So I will pull that into the base layer and hit G to get that out of the way a bit. Shift D to duplicate that node, but then swap out the texture, and then plug that into the roughness, move it out the way a bit, and then just reassign another bump and Shift D again, but load the bump into my texture slot and then connect that up to the height slot. So now I have two different nodes on a single object. So both these shaders, I mean, both these shaders are now assigned to that object. Problem is, I can only see one shader. Oh, and by the way, for your material to show, one needs a material output. So in reality, I would need that as well. What I can do here is I can hit Shift Control and click on either one of these just to preview the node that I'm in. Problem is, I still don't see both nodes in the viewport. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix these two based on another image, and that image is going to be a black and white image. It's where the white will show one shader, one material, and the black will show the other one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a nice image like this in there, and I'm just going to load that straight into my UV editor like that from Windows Explorer, and then go and search for a mix shader, not mix RGB. So I'll want mix shader for this one. If I wanted to mix RGB, that's typically where I can mix two images in a diffuse slot. Mix shader mixes materials together. So I'll put a mix shader into my screen. Now it's a bit limited to work like this, so I'm going to make sure that this window is active using max language there, and then if I hit Control and space, it'll throw that into the full viewport. So now I've got a little bit more workspace. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that principled shader, connect it to the top. I'm going to take this principled shader, connect it to the bottom, and then I'll duplicate that out, connect that to the surface. So now the shaders are combined, but I've got nothing to tell it how to display it, what to display where. So now in the factor area is where I need to tell it, reference this black and white image and show top material on white, bottom material on black, or vice versa. So now if I again, and you know this by now, type texture and I select image texture, I can now plug this in over here, and then I can tell it. Now I've already dropped that black and white image into the scene, so I can tell it to go look for that image over here. And now I'm just going to hit Control and Space again to just go back out of my viewports. And now if I preview my mix node, again, like I said, Shift Control click will preview the specific node that you're clicking. So I'm clicking Shift Control and brick, Shift Control cement, and now Shift Control and the mix node. So it's going to take a little bit of a time to load, but you can see now that I'm previewing the mix node, it's giving me the concrete and brick mix. So what I'm going to do now is just adjust the scaling a little bit, but you've seen what I've done over here. So now again on this, it's one of those things where you can also give yourself a mapping node and adjust how that sits. So if you want to make the scaling of the black and white image a bit denser, then you can double up here. If you want to make it a bit sparser, you can go halves. So you can see now there's some concrete, but mostly brick. And if I do 1.5, you should be doubling up, or not doubling up, but adding more concrete. So I can almost slide this and you can see the adjustments that's being made. So that is it. That is mixing two shaders on a single object using a mix shader. Now I've mixed quite complex materials, and these are nice for exactly this kind of thing, but also I'm more of a product designer, so I use this to mix in different areas on bottle labels or whatever else I'm rendering, and it's nice to have the logo on a bottle on one shader and maybe a glossy part of the logo on another shader and maybe an embossed part of a bottle logo on another shader still. And then it gives you a very, very good degree of control over each shader and each part that you are working with. It's a very useful thing to know.